Gunther, I am going to stop sharing and let you take it away. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie, and welcome everybody. And if people keep coming in, and I hope we will run into the license limit of Zoom of 100 people. I sincerely hope so, because as you all know, certainly Jamie, Jeff, Mark, and the other people organizing this in general, you get about 1/3 of the people registering actually showing up, which is pretty poor in a way. But you know what? I stopped thinking about it. It's like the people who come, you know, that idea from the people who come are the right people, whatever happens. And I don't care whether I talk for a few people or 100 people. It seems, I don't know, in some way my enthusiasm or my passion always takes over anyhow. But overthinking is something, overthinking is something that I really suffer from. No.
Well, we're getting close. We're at 80 people, so.
Yeah, which is amazing, which is, I think about half, no, 1/3 of or more of the people are registered. Cool, great. So thanks, Jamie, for the introduction. I've also saw the, I know we've got people from around the world, but maybe the farthest away might be Greg Mester. Might be Greg. I see you're online. Zoom. What's the time over there now? Where you are?
It is 12:12 p.m.
Okay, which is okay. Okay, cool. So thanks everybody for being here. Quite amazing. Although I'm afraid I've got nothing new to say, because as we were starting up, Jamie pointed out, "Hey, you've been talking about this for a while now," and I said, "Yeah, that's true." So we'll see. Maybe I've got some new stuff anyhow. Now, talking about books, that is also, I think, one of the things about this. So Jamie pointed out already the book that we published in the middle of the COVID crisis. So this is one, 97 things every Scrum practitioner should know, with effectively people from around the world contributing an article, up to 97. And like Jamie said, this is third edition of my book. It's generally called Scrum, a Pocket Guide. Because it's rather small and fit, it's 100 pages also. It's also a little bit of a small print, but you know, and that is indeed.
Need your reading glasses for those of you who are maybe my age.
Yeah, or my age. I need glasses for reading. I need glasses to look like really far away, different glasses, and then I think in the meantime I'm going to need other glasses for the medium distance too. You know, at age, it's a bit crazy. Now the funny thing is that I still think I can say some new things. I'm trying to wrap up this thing that I call moving your Scrum downfield. It includes things that I've talked about over the past couple of years of humanizing the workplace, engagement, illusion of agility, what people run into when they go to agile transformations, and all the stuff. And in a way, all of this is coming together. So, and I'm going to try to bring it together in a new book. So book 97 articles, that wasn't really my book. I directed and curated it. But I think I'm going to compile things, and my ambition for this year is to actually finally create a new book. I have no idea how many plans for a new book I've had over the past 5 or 6 years, and then started enthusiastically through the way again. But this thing about moving your Scrum downfield, I'm going to try to compile all those ideas in a book. It seems to resonate. The problem is, as I was conceiving that book, I was also thinking about this book, and then, there's still a couple of things that I would like to change. So I'm probably also going to work this year on a 4th edition of this book. But I know what I get myself into, but it's just things that happen. So be out there looking for my book. I'm not going to put a date on it. That would just kill me. I don't perform under deadlines, by the way. Some people do. I don't. It kills me, destroys me. It drains me totally. Now, as some of you know, I sometimes like to refer to quotes that I find interesting. This is one that I've used a while ago. It's from Albert Camus. It's from a book called, in translation, it would be called The Myth of Sisyphus. And it resonated with me because it says beginning to think is beginning to be undermined. And I totally recognize that. Sometimes I overthink a lot. That undermines a lot of things. Sometimes you need to trust your intuition. Sometimes you do actually have to think about it in order to be undermined. So it can go in all directions. And I just came up with this because of this actually. So this is a picture taken yesterday. So imagine how actual my presentation is. So yesterday I was at a large French organization for a few sessions and sort of keynote and so on. And in the end, in the evening, there was a sort of a walking dinner. Do you know that walking dinner when they bring all sorts of little things to eat? And if you take enough of little things, you also have a big meal. And then there was the opportunity to take a picture, and two people that I was talking to invited me to take a picture with them. And after this, I gently sneaked out because I don't like parties. I'm not a fun guy to hang around with anyhow. I'm way much too introvert, but at least this would give you the idea that I can be a fun guy too, and I'm not always deadly serious. But that's just an illusion, believe me. So thanks a lot, Scrum Masters of the Universe meetup, to having me here. I want to talk about moving your Scrum downfield, and I've been talking about lots of these aspects, but in a way, sort of lately, let's say over the past year, I wanted to make it a little bit stronger. But I think because it's for me, it's about the future state of Scrum, and I believe we've got that all together collectively in our hands to shape the future state of Scrum. And I'll tell you why. So this is another quote that I have. Some people recognize this. This is what Jamie already said. So cool. Few books I've written, and then as in the introduction, Jamie was introducing lots of the advantages that you guys have as participants of the Scrum Masters of the universe actually. So it's a universe of. Yeah, and I wanted to do something for you guys too. So most of you probably know that I'm a professional Scrum trainer. I do some professional Scrum classes. I'm now also, based upon my book, by the way, Scrum Pocket Guide, developing a series of half-day workshops that I call Scrum Pocket classes. Some people have already pointed out that the abbreviation SPC is already in use by some other sort of organization where they have SPC, so let's reclaim that. And just want to give you guys a shout out. Thanks for being part of the Scrum Masters of the Universe. And you will see a discount code on the screen or in the recording afterwards, or I will share this presentation as a PDF that you can use on my website, and that means you've got a 10% discount on any of my classes. So if you want to attend one of my Scrum Pocket classes or one of my professional Scrum trainings, go to my website, and in the web shop or in the in the final stages you can enter the discount code if you're interested. So just a gesture, and I will keep that code alive for as long as it takes. I mean, for the rest of our life. Yeah. Okay. So I hope you like that. Now, two real things now. And let's start, if you want to think about the future state of Scrum, let's think about the current state of Scrum, at least the way I look at it, the way I perceive it, the way I think it is. And I bring lots of things together by joining meetups and doing presentations across the world, having people in my classes from around the world, because my own classes I still do online, so it allows people from different countries to be part of it. And I ask questions and I share things and so on. And I see a lot of recognition in people's eyes when I talk about things. So I think I've got this sort of idea assembled in my head, which I would call the current state of Scrum. Yeah. Now, one of the things that really bothers me is that we're not using Scrum as a tool for lots of other things than just trying to build better products. That is also the reason why I call myself on a mission of humanizing the workplace with Scrum, because Scrum shouldn't just be a tool that helps us build better products. It is also a tool that should help us build a better workplace where people love to come to work again, where people re-energize and re-engage again. And that has a lot to do with that self-organization aspect of Scrum. But it bothers me also that we're not using Scrum as a tool to help our organizations, our enterprises, move from what I've called in my book, the Agile paradigm, the industrial paradigm or the industrial way of working, into what I've called in my book, I've described as the Agile paradigm. And why is that? You know, a lot of our organizations have their roots in that industrial age. They were like built on industrial principles. And what does that mean? We have set up organizations and we've managed our work and we have organized our organizations for things like efficiency, utilization, maximize utilization of things, sharing resources, reusing resources, cost reduction, cost cutting, and so on. And that has all to do with that industrial mindset because it's based on working with machines. And the machines on a manufacturing line, you want to keep busy as much as possible because it costs a lots of money. You have to repay that investment. You want to make that as useful as possible, and that is how we organize around. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but looking at efficiency, people being busy all the time, every minute being highly productive, whatever we call it. Having maximal utilization and then moving people around so that we maximize the utilization across teams and projects and so on. I don't know whether you noticed, but the focus of all of that is looking in a way at ourselves, at the inside of the organization, at how we use people, how we apply things and so on. And it's often based upon the idea that I described also the sort of Taylorist view on people, where we treat them as mindless workers. We don't trust them, we don't respect them, we don't think they're smart and intelligent enough to do their job on their own. So we've got lots of instances and managers and project managers, whatever in place to make sure that everybody's working on the right stuff. So that is, and I feel we're still stuck in that thinking, that mindset to start with, but also the actual structures. And what people find out, organizations find out, as we move from the industrial age, let's say, into more and more into the information age, and I think we're still transferring, so we're not yet there. A lot of those organizations find out that they're very rigid. They're fixed, they can't change, it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of delays, it takes so much work, it takes so much people involved in process and whatever to get even the most small piece of work out there on the market and so on. So overall they find it is rigid, it is difficult to work with, and in this case rigidity for me is almost like the antithesis of agility. Because agility is about flexibility, responsiveness. Rigidity is sort of the antithesis of that. Now, the funny thing is that it's based on that industrial thinking, but you know what? I don't even believe that this actually works or is really great, not even in manufacturing, mass production environments and so on. And over the past couple of years, I was in touch with a couple of like really industrial organizations, like steel production things and so on. And you know what? Not even in a really, really industrial environment, they still apply this Taylorist approach. So, and that bothers me so much. We're working often in IT, technology, the most modern state-of-the-art technology, software development and so on. And we're so still stuck in this organizational model based upon an industry that doesn't even use that model for themselves anymore. How outdated can we be? And that bothers me, at least as you might notice, a little bit. So, and what the problem is that a lot of organizations, they found out we are so rigid, it's slow, full of delays, people not engaged, people don't believe, people don't commit, people don't go for it, whatever. All those things are being observed by organizations internally, let's say, and they go for some sort of what they call agile transformation, because they pick up signals and messages from other organizations. Oh, but we've done Scrum, or we've done this, or Agile, and whatever. It becomes has become a totally empty buzzword. Unfortunately, I still use it, but a lot of people, I don't think, give a proper meaning to that. But at least they want to go through some sort of agile transformation. Oh yeah, I want to become agile too, because what we're doing now, it's not working. We want to be faster with more quality and so on. So they go for this buzzword of an agile transformation. But what I've seen in most cases, if not all cases, of people, organizations go to some sort of official agile transformation, between quotes, is that what they do, they hear about this thing called teams. Oh yeah, it's all teams based and so on. And so within their existing structures, they're going to combine people into teams because they've heard something about Agile and Scrum teams, and that seems to come back a lot. Oh, they see that our people are not working together, so we need to introduce some form of collaboration. And they form people into teams. And then they think magically all problems are going to disappear or dissolve. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, it's not that easy. But again, yesterday I was at a big French company, and even there at the opening of the event, there was a lady doing a really great talk, by the way. But she said, we've got a lot of things to do in terms of collaboration. And they have exactly sort of, when I introduced this idea to them, they totally recognize it. Because what was the situation? In the old school situation, they've got all those silos. I hope that rings a bell, that term, departments and so on. People sort of organized around their specialization or their functional description, all testers together, all analysts and so on. So silos and departments. All across the organization, and even within, so they are really disconnected from each other a lot. But even within those organizations, they feel like, yeah, indeed, our people are running around like headless chickens, not being disconnected, not even within the department. So, oh, we want to have teams, and then they start forming teams. But a little bit, unfortunately, they do it within the existing structures often. So they move to some form of teams, but without I don't know, without the courage or without the belief, without the insight, without whatever, to do something about the walls we have between those departments and silos. And after a while, so they think, oh yeah, we're going to be agile. We've got everybody into teams, so we now have plenty of agile teams or Scrum teams around, whatever. And still, after a while, they find out we are still very rigid. Yeah? And one of the reasons is in a way that they limit themselves to the team level. And then often when setting up new team structures, let's say, they often just copy paste what other organizations are doing. Some sort of model, a cookbook approach, whatever. Oh yeah, you're doing, let's not put names on these things. Oh, you're doing that framework, you're doing that methodology, whatever. Oh, let's do that too. And then they blindly copy that, some sort of blueprint on how things should be named and called and organized with sizes and so on. So all that copy pasting or just limiting themselves to the team level is not helpful. After a while, they find out we are still rigid. And then often they've gone through sometimes 1 to 3 years of going through this, forming teams, organizing teams around that, introducing whatever agile process, hopefully at least something that looks like Scrum, probably, maybe not really Scrum, but something that looks like it. And so they find out after a while, they're still very rigid. Now, I've been at several organizations, and what I found missing in those approaches often, besides all the things that they do wrong, like the copy pasting, the blueprinting, the whatever, is where is all the idea of product? So you're introducing Scrum. Scrum has its roots in product development. Scrum, in a way, you could describe it as a product management framework. Where's the idea of product in this? So you've got all these teams often working in some form of silos, still not being really connected. And then you've got multiple teams, sometimes, strangely enough, almost unknowingly, actually working on the same product. One team is building a little component, another team is building another component, another team is continuing the work of another team. And in the end, it has to be sort of magically assembled and form a product. So I wonder, where's the idea of product in this? And who's minding the health and the well-being in a way of the product at the level of the product, which is more than just a wild assembly of components that are being created in perfect isolation almost. So that's what I miss when companies adopt Scrum. Know your product. What is your product? Because you're using Scrum, and I call that sort of, what is the scope of your Scrum? You want to use Scrum, but what is the product? And are your Scrum teams optimally organized to serve your product? Well, I'll come back on that. So knowing your product, I think, is a really important thing. But another important question that I see, what about all the structures and the processes and the governance and the whatever the meetings, the methodologies, whatever approaches you use as a company around Scrum? So they try to introduce Scrum into an existing, often methodology, a big shop, whatever way of working, some sort of big corporate or whatever governance approach that they have. So what about all the systems and the processes and the management layers around Scrum? You know, more agile teams does not make a more agile organization. So in a way, just getting people to work now as a team and give them quickly the names that we have in Scrum for that, you know, the roles or accountabilities, is quickly calling somebody, oh yeah, you're doing some feature requirements. Let's call you the product owner now because we've got something like that. Oh yeah, let's call you the Scrum Master. Oh, let's make the Scrum Master even a side job because it shouldn't be a full-time thing anyhow. And then a bunch of people together, we call them the team. But that's not nearly enough. That's not nearly enough. The end result is still this. You know, look at those organizations, it's still one sort of big dysfunctional mess with still disconnectedness. Teams not connected to each other rather than individuals, but still not disconnected across silos, across departments, and so on. So it's not really helpful. And it often just leads to what I've called in the past, I've been talking about, is what I call the illusion of agility. Organizations fool themselves into thinking that this approach, limited to the teams only, copy pasting what other people are doing in an almost mass production way, meaning over the next 2 weeks, we're going to transform all of our teams. Everybody has to be part of a Scrum team now. And as from day 14 starting today, 2 weeks from now, everybody's going to follow the Scrum process and so on. And often it's all imposed on people. People are directed at. There's nothing of engaging people in that, trying to involve people in decisions being taken and so on. No, it's all sort of very, very, very top down. And then after a while, people find out it's still rigid. Our actual agility has not increased as we thought it would be increase. And at some point of time, there's this sort of hard wake-up call, which I call the deflation by reality. So they build up an illusion of agility. They think they're becoming more agile. At some point of time, it will turn out that it's not happening. There's still a lot of disconnectedness. That's sort of, for me, the current state of Scrum. And let's look into what I hope we can make all together. And I think Scrum Masters of the universe, we have all the tools, the skills, whatever in our hands to make this happen. But let's think about the future state of Scrum. And there is this sort of, in a way, is it a belief that I have? Yes, it is possible to standardize on Scrum without industrializing it to death. You can adopt Scrum without taking all of the openness, the beauty out of Scrum. And let me give a very practical example. And again, unfortunately, yesterday at that big French organization, it was again confirmed by everybody that they were also doing this. So all organizations, I don't know why, they say that everybody has to do Scrum. So we form people into teams. All those teams are now called Scrum teams or DevOps or whatever teams, but underlying, they all try to do Scrum. And all teams have to work in sprints of 2 weeks. And all sprints have to start on the same day and end on the same day. And I'm like, huh? Why? I don't get it. The only rule that Scrum has, but even that is not what people know. The only rule that Scrum has is that your sprint shouldn't be more than 4 weeks, because it turns into a black box again. You'll get disconnected. You'll get out of sync with important evolutions outside of the team. So no more than 4 weeks. That's the only rule that Scrum has. You can 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. We don't care. So that has openness in Scrum so that you can tune your implementation of Scrum to your context, your situation. I do not understand why in a certain organizations, in every business domain, using every technology, every types of market that they're trying to reach, that they would have to do 2-week sprints, and that all their sprints have to start and end on the same day. That is industrializing your Scrum to death. I do not get it. I believe that you can standardize on Scrum in the sense that everybody's doing Scrum. Everybody knows about the core minimal basic rules of Scrum. Everybody knows what product owner accountability is. Everybody knows what it means to work in sprints. Everybody knows what self-organizing teams are, and so on. But that doesn't mean that every single instance of Scrum within an organization has to work in exactly the same way. In certain types of products, probably you might need bigger, longer sprints, shorter sprints. Your product owner will have a very different profile, more technology background or not, more business background. It all depends on what sort of product are you building for whom, using what sort of technology. So I don't get it.
Gunther,
Yes.
we've got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to throw this grenade, and I'm going to step back and let you handle it.
Okay.
Claire asks, would you
should I
have a
put my helmet
recommendation
on?
for a frame? Yeah, I think you better. Claire asks, would you have a recommendation for a framework to scale Scrum?
No. I can speak frankly. I've got nothing to lose here, right? There's nothing commercially in this, so I can get killed. No. So let me get a little bit sort of personal, professionally done, but personal. So I've worked at Scrum.org from 2013 until 2016. That was that period that Jamie referred to as partnering with Ken Schrabe. So for 3 years, I've partnered with Ken. I was officially called the Director of Professional Series at Scrum.org. And one of the things that Ken and I did was try to help people with their demands to scale, the urgency they felt, the need they felt to scale. And by that time, when we were doing it was 2013, 2014, just sort of out of nowhere, there was a certain framework taking over the world, a framework that says it's built on Scrum, but you don't recognize Scrum. So Ken was really eager to in a way help people with a need to scale. That turned into Nexus, the Nexus framework, or the Nexus framework for scaled professional Scrum. Recently, last year, I decided to build one of my Scrum Pocket classes around what I call Scrum in the large. Scrum in the large, to in a way avoid the term scale, but there's nothing you don't find an established term with Scrum and scale in it nowadays anyhow. But so but it's still my belief, Scrum in the large, and I went back to the most minimal version of Scrum that you can use in order to work with multiple teams on the same product. And in that sense, I believe that Nexus is even somewhat simpler than LESS, although they have a lot of shared practices and principles in place. And I wanted to make it even simpler than that. And what is the reason that I wanted to do that with scaling? For 2 reasons. The first reason is a general one. People mistake scale for a lot of teams. If you're working in an organization, and one of the organizations I worked was in the Netherlands, an insurance company, and I think they had about 100 Scrum teams in place. That does not mean they have to work at scale or adopt some scaling framework. It just means they have a lot of teams. If you have a lot of teams and they're all working on different products, then you don't have a scaling problem in a way. So the amount of products that you have that need to be maintained by Scrum teams That is your scale. Now, I've worked with quite some large organizations, but they're not at the size of the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons of this world. None of those organizations, and they were quite big organizations, banking, insurance companies, telecom, whatever, none of them had to work on one product with more than a few teams, and certainly not 10, 20, 50, whatever teams on the same product. So they're introducing a solution, a perceived solution for a problem that actually doesn't exist. So that's what I built my Scrum in the Large workshop for, to help people see that actually you don't need those things. You can just stick to Scrum and work with multiple Scrum teams on a single product without twisting Scrum, without even adding anything to that. So the idea of scaling is probably not for these people on the call, is just an excuse for managers to pretend at events and so on and in magazines that they are a really important company because they are so big and so huge that they absolutely needed a big size, whatever scaling framework. But it's ruining the company more than they realize because they don't have that sort of scaling problem. Well, good enough, Mark? Okay.
Very nice.
Cool.
You disabled the grenade before it exploded. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, and that is in a way one way of industrializing your Scrum to death, because not talking about less than Nexus, but in all of the other things, I just don't recognize Scrum in it anymore. Scrum gets so overloaded with things that there's no room for bottom-up intelligence creation anymore, which is almost the essence of Scrum. Plus, scale means how many teams have to build, evolve one product, not how many Scrum teams you have in the organization. Yeah, okay, cool. And now, and this is a really explicit call. So we're talking now to the Scrum Masters of the universe. Now, what I miss over the past couple of years is people willing to break through or break up, whatever I have to call it, the complacency. There's some sort of complacency. A lot of organizations introduce Scrum, some minor improvements, whatever, and we're already happy. And I'm like, no. Where are the people having the courage to keep challenging the status quo, to help people see, no, we can take it one step further. Even yesterday at that French company, and I've had that experience with several companies, why is nobody challenging the idea that you don't have to do the same sprint length for all teams? And certainly not all sprints have to start and end on the same date. It's the first thing that I did when I was working at the insurance company. Why on earth are you doing that? So what I miss is courageous Scrum Masters challenging the status quo. And again, a personal memory, when I was working with Ken those 3 years, it was one of the questions, can we let's put out some sort of, let's create a baseline sort of for Scrum Masters, and imagine Scrum Master would come as a product wrapped in a box, whatever. You can unpack the box and you would have a Scrum Master. For me, nowadays, the most important baseline of that product should be careful. This person is going to challenge the status quo. It's going to ask provoking questions. It's going to be nasty, whatever, a pain in the, that is our role without getting fired. Because as Ken once said, a dead Scrum Master won't help a lot either. But I miss this challenging the status quo. People are complacent. Organizations have become complacent, and we get stuck off using Scrum, trying to use Scrum within that industrial context, so that industrial way of organizing work. That means the benefits we will get from Scrum are already enormously limited anyhow. So, call to action for Scrum Masters across the world and across the universe, please pick up your thing of challenging the status quo. It's one of the things that we should do, and I think it's got a little lost in history in a way. So we need people challenging the status quo. So please go for it. And one of my other,
Gunther.
yeah, go ahead. Is it another grenade or is it okay?
I'm not sure. Karen? And you're muted, Karen.
Getting ready to lob. So Charlene said, yes, we do challenge the status quo. Most of the time, leadership vetoes it. So Gunther, how have you approached this to be successful? Because this happens over and over again. When people speak up, they can be gone. So give us some gems of how you do this. Work your magic.
But yeah, well, to start with, I'm certainly not a wizard, so I have little magic, and I wouldn't even call myself actually really successful, because I'm having difficulties getting through to organizations too. What I did at that insurance company, where I found out that they were all doing sprints at the same time and same length and so on, I questioned that. So why you do that? Can you explain to me? And even the simple question, why are we doing sprints of 2 weeks? And then try to build up a conversation. So often what surprises me the most is everybody's doing sprints of 2 weeks and they have no idea why. That means they haven't thought about it. They haven't given it thought. It is not a conscious decision. And then it's often, oh yeah, because management tells us to do sprints of 2 weeks. And does that feel right to you? Is that the right sprint length to you? And if all your sprints starts and end on the same date, because in a lot of those organizations, you've got those multiple teams in a way working on the same product, and how they often try to resolve it is that the product owner of team one becomes a sort of stakeholder of the other team. But as they work on the same timings, they can't go to the sprint review of the other team as a stakeholder, because they have to be part of the sprint review of their own team as a product owner. So I've tried to motivate people, first of all, to start decoupling that cadence. So not the same start, not the same end date. And then as a next step, in a way, sometimes you want to be a little bit of a pirate. And maybe that's easier for me as sometimes as an external coach, say, okay, what do you think is a better sprint length? And yeah, I think 3 weeks will be better. So let's just do 3 weeks. Let's see what happens. And you know what? If somebody comes asking, complaining, send them to me. So I try to take that sort of pressure off of them. But sometimes you just want to be a little bit of a pirate and just do things. Often it goes unnoticed, by the way, which is also fascinating. So there's not really managed, but question it. Ask people, why are we doing it like this? What made us do it like this? Is it the best way, do you think? And we've got this beautiful opportunity, the retrospective. So as Scrum Masters challenging the status quo, it sounds maybe heavier than it is, but use the retrospective to work with the team and look back at all of the aspects of how are we working, sprint lengths, time of the daily Scrum, connection to other teams. So that is question it.
Thank you for that. I'm also thinking, instead of the voice of one Scrum Master, do you ever have like community of practice or center of excellence where all the Scrum Masters get together and agree for kind of a unified voice? So it's just not one voice, crying in the wilderness, right? You've got our whole Scrum team has thought about this, and we're presenting this to you. Has anybody ever done that? Have you ever done that?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't want to put a name on it. I in general call it form alliances with other Scrum Masters. Yeah, and what shape that alliance becomes, a community of practice, I don't really care, but indeed form alliances with other Scrum Masters, talk to each other, share experiences, to take things back to your team. Learn from other Scrum Masters and take it back to your team. What I've noticed a couple of times is that sort of alliance and sort of becomes a little therapeutic thing where people come to whine and complain and cry. That is fine too, but try to get it something out of it that you take back to your team as a Scrum Master. And in the end, ultimately, if management keeps bashing you, you might tell them we could just also stop doing Scrum because it's not helpful. And in the end, you might reach a point where And I think that might be what's happening. You might reach a point where you think for yourself personally. For me, the sort of the value of integrity is really important. And if in the end people keep bashing me and so on, I'm going to think for myself, I can stay and I have to comply with whatever people are doing for me. And if you decide to do that, fine as far as I'm concerned, but then don't be unhappy either and stop complaining. If you've made the decision to stay and comply, fine from a personal point of view. But if you really can't live with it, maybe ultimately you want to leave. But I'm often really, really annoyed by people complaining all the time at the coffee machine, over lunch and after hours and whatever, but not actually trying to do something with it. And I'm so, it saddens me a lot to see those unhappy lives. And I'm like, maybe I'm too black and white, but either you comply and you stay, but then try to get sort of those black clouds out of your mind, or leave and do something that does make you happy. But staying complying and still complaining all the time, that brings such a lot of negative energy along with it. But that's just my personal view on life a little bit.
So Gunther, do you have time for one more question on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. For the Scrum Masters of the universe, anything. No, that's not true.
All right. Well, Charlene asks, she makes a statement. She says, I did challenge these things, such as same-day sprint end, length of sprint, shared team members, etc. And every time I am told from leadership that they want to show reporting on the same day. They do not understand that you should not compare team velocity.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
No, the ultimate, and I always say that's a little bit of a silly thing to do, is to go back to the rules of Scrum and then ask people, okay, so what does Scrum say about that? What does Scrum say about sprint length? Oh, only 4 weeks or less. What does Scrum say about reporting? Well, Scrum has no mandatory reporting built into the framework. It's something you add to it. So a lot of people add practices and activities and whatever on top of Scrum from a sort of organizational desire that have nothing to do with Scrum. So in a way, in the end, you might want to go back. It's almost like a lawyer. What does the law say? Oh, well, the law says nothing. So and ultimately try to generate awareness. One thing that often really helps is to have at least one person in leadership somewhere who better understands it, who believes in it, who's willing to support you and help you, some sort of promoter at that level, who has sort of a peer relationship with those other CXO or management people. So sometimes it really helps to have a sort of sponsor, sort of mental, almost philosophical sponsor at that level. So with your Scrum Master Alliance, that's something you might want to look for too. Yeah,
All right,
because
good. Thanks, Gunther.
you're welcome. Because in the end, I believe this challenging the status quo. The idea of Scrum is to be a great tool to build better products, faster, higher quality, whatever, but also humanize the workplace, but also help our organizations get away from those industrial structures. But that is the hardest thing to do. And I wouldn't describe myself as successful in that. I do know back in 2016, it was shortly after I stopped the exclusive work with Ken because I wanted to do consulting again. So I went out there again as a single person on my own 2 feet, my little one-person company. It's also when I started calling myself an independent Scrum Caretaker, by the way, because I had to give myself a title. Now I couldn't call myself director or whatever of anything anymore. And I wanted to give a word to whatever it was that I was doing, what I believed in. And I found this beautiful English word. I think it's Old English even, almost like medieval English. It just fits my beard probably. And I loved it so much. It's reversify. It's to reversify. The dots are in there for me. It's a verb. That's something I liked. It was to reversify. So it's something that you do. It's not a model. It's not a cookbook thing, whatever. It's about something that you do. It's not something you can copy. And by that time, I also loved the fact that it ended on IFI, because a lot of companies were going for this Spotify model. I wanted to have something with IFI in it, so that also helped me. But I mostly liked the meaning of the words. So the meaning, according to the dictionary, is to formulate something new in verse, to pick up an existing text and resource the verse, the rhythm, the rhyming, the poetry of it. And like that, so to reversify, bring back poetry, rhythm, poesy to things. And it's that, yeah, this sounds like what I'm trying to do, is in that sense to help organizations restore the harmony in the organization, the agility, the flexibility, just collaboration of people rather than just processes and bureaucracy and administration and so on. And what it requires for me, and I focused a lot on the first aspect by then, but I'll explain, is it requires to reimagine your Scrum, rethink what you're doing with Scrum, how you're implementing Scrum, and then go to re-emerging the structures around Scrum. And I don't know if you noticed, but this goes back to the book that we talked about, my Scrum Pocket Guide. The first edition was wrote in 2013. Imagine how long ago. And in that book, I already had the quote by the end of the book saying, the future state of Scrum will no longer be called Scrum. 2013, what we now call Scrum will have become the norm, the standard way of working. We will just naturally do it. We don't have to think about those terms anymore. And organizations have restructured or re-emerged around it. That was my belief in 2013. It still is my belief. But I think we need to kick some asses to make it really happen. But it's my belief. And that is what I mean with, we have to move Scrum downfield by moving our Scrums all downfield. If as Scrum Masters of the universe, we start working with our teams in our organizations and we start moving our individual Scrum instances downfield, together collectively bottom up, we will be moving Scrum downfield as a global movement. And you know what? It doesn't have to depend on whatever updates of the Scrum Guide anymore. They can't keep updating the Scrum Guide. It's already become a little bit fuzzy with the latest update. And all those people fighting sort of what I call terminology wars around Scrum. That doesn't help us anymore. So try to help us. And what I launched back in 2016, and it was at least one company following my advice. So reimagine your Scrum. So Scrum has become the standard, but then sort of the industrialized way of working. A lot of organizations have adopted Scrum, or at least something that looks like Scrum. So Scrum is massively present throughout the world. That's a bit of a problem. That massive thing is not helping anymore. What we are looking for, I think I'm very sure that Scrum Masters of the universe are looking for that too, is within those global masses spread around the world. We're looking for those single, individual, courageous practitioners of Scrum that dare to stand up, challenge the status quo, and so on. So this message, I know, it's sort of like my classes. I get a lot of difficulties filling up my classes. And I start realizing, yes, because I don't bring convenient messages. And I don't talk about Scrum in convenient ways. So this doesn't appeal to the big masses. This message will not appeal to the big masses either. So I'm hoping that at least some people stand up. And it starts with reimagining your Scrum. In that sense, look at all the initiatives that you've massively, mass productively, whatever, have forced to do Scrum, and pick one, pick a few, whatever, and let's have a closer look. So forget all of the other ones. We're not interested in mass production. Just pick one, an important one, a very strange one that you had high expectations or hopes for. I don't care. And for that initiative, let's first identify what is the product of this initiative. And let's think about the product. In that sense, the message to the company is know your product, because your product will define what should be in your definition of done. Because the definition of done should hold all of the criteria, the expectations, the characteristics, the qualities that your product, that the increments of your product should have in order to be able to put them into production. In most, if not all Scrum adoptions, the definition of done is a reflection of what the team is actually able to do. And it should be the other way around. You should start with your definition of done, describing what should a releasable increment of this product should look like, what should we have done for that, what should be its qualities, and then let's set up our teams so that we have the expertise and the skills in our teams to actually be able to do that. So start with product and then reboot your Scrum, reorganize, reform your Scrum teams, building on the insights of the people themselves. So in that sense, teams self-forming or self-forming teams, but all against the idea to optimally serve the product. How should we organize as one or a couple of Scrum teams so that we can, as multiple Scrum teams, or maybe just simple situation as one Scrum team, so that we can start creating releasable increments of our product, and we can start releasing them as what I call tasty sashimi product slices. Something that an end user sees value in, that he or she likes, that he likes to eat, that is tasteful. But you know what? For one initiative only. Try to start there. Let's reboot our Scrum based upon knowing our product and the ambition to start creating sashimi product slices of that product as quickly as possible and quickly evolve towards that. Now, by that time, I think 2016, 2017, I brought this advice to a large, not the one from yesterday, a large French multinational company too. A friend of mine, Fabio, did the actual work on the floor as a Scrum coach. I helped him bring a message to the International Executive Committee and so on. And in the end, after a few years, he wrote a paper about it. Company was okay writing a paper about it, but still didn't want their name in it. So that's why we call it the world leading company in secure communications. You will find that paper either on my website or on the website of Scrum.org, by the way. And they did this sort of the first step of what I call Reversify, reimagining their Scrum. And if you do that for one initiative, and after a few sprints, you've really moved forward and you've improved and you get closer to that ability to create actually releases, increments of the product, then and you will run into lots of problems, by the way, HR, performance things, how to fund projects, reporting, and so on. That's why I want to make it small. So when I talk about Reversify, let's go from big scale transformations back to small scale. You know what? Do this for one initiative, one product, one project, one service, whatever you want to call it. Learn and then expand. So repeat this, and then you get into the mode of iterative incremental evolution, which is Scrum. So you start using Scrum, the idea of Scrum, to actually introduce Scrum, which is a much better step than the industrial approach. So, but you know, in terms of success, I can only refer to this company. They actually believe me. So other people haven't gone through maybe the deflation by reality yet. I don't know, but I can only sort of stand by my beliefs. Yeah, but when rebooting your Scrum, even yesterday at that large French company, been doing Scrum for a while now, even refreshing this idea about the accountabilities of Scrum still seem to help. Product owner is all about scope, budget, progress reporting, whatever. That means Scrum Master is not. That is already a surprise. And then somebody asked me in the audience yesterday, yeah, but who's then responsible for architecting the system? And I was based upon this slide. I said, well, from the accountabilities you have in Scrum, so you have 3 accountabilities. What do you think? Who should be? Is it product owner? Is it developers? Or is it Scrum Master? Yeah, probably developers. I said, yes, because development in Scrum and I know I'm repeating this message, is more than just coding or programming. It's doing all of the implementation, whatever types of work that are needed to be done to create a high quality, releasable increment of the product. That might need analyzing, designing, architecting, review the database, creating interfaces, whatever. All of that work should be included. That is all development. So development is not just programming. So let me try to reinforce that message over and over again. Yeah. So, and that means in the simplest situation, single team Scrum, and most organizations that I know, even the larger one, single team Scrum is more than enough. Imagine, I've been in a couple of big implementations for whatever reason, I don't know why, very early on in my whatever career of Scrum. So from 2003 until 2007, we did amazing stuff, really big products for large audiences with only a single Scrum team. And you can do so much with a well-oiled Scrum team, having the practices, the authorizations, and so on. So a single Scrum team, you've got a product backlog managed and ordered by the product owner. You've got a team pulling work from that product backlog into the sprint against the ambition to produce a releasable increment no later than by the end of the sprint. You could try to release an increment sooner. That's all fine according to Scrum. Now, in all of the organizations I know, if they would be able to produce at least one totally releasable increment in a sprint of 2 or 3 or 4, whatever weeks, that would be already an amazing achievement. But I think they focus on the wrong things. But that is the idea of single team Scrum. And I hope we can facilitate people to actually do that. And then a lot of people think that they should go for scale. And this was sort of, I think, my main input into what became the Nexus, next to the other things that were added by other people. If you're working with multiple teams on one product, you would still have one product backlog. How many backlogs can you have for the same product? It's a product backlog after all. You've got one product owner managing it. And now, rather than just having one team pulling work from that product backlog into their sprints, you now have multiple teams doing that. But the idea remains the same, that no later than by the end of the sprint, there should be a releasable version of your product, a version of your product that can be put into production, released to the market if you want. It's potentially, but that's still the idea, even if you're working with multiple teams on the same product. It requires some additional stuff, but it doesn't change the rules of Scrum. Those increments should be integrated, even if you have largely autonomous teams. And just one thing about scaling, there are some frameworks and approaches out there that say that teams should be autonomous and independent and so on, and people introduce and copy paste or introduce those frameworks, and they believe for themselves we now all have independent teams. That means they don't think about integration of the work and so on across those teams, and they fool themselves because those teams are not truly autonomous. So that is a danger. People fooling themselves by believing that we now have fully autonomous teams, although it's only on the surface of things that it looks like they are autonomous. And they're not taking into account measures to align work and integrate work across teams is not really helpful. But the idea is just the same. Those multiple teams producing increments of the product that can be put onto the market. That means there must be some sort of integration, consistency, integrity of the product across all of the work of all of the teams. And this is what I bring, by the way, in the Scrum in the large class. But I wanted to go for this session sort of all the way. Thanks to Jamie, I can have a little bit more time. So one of the things that I found, and again, yesterday at that large French organization, there was, I don't know, for whatever reason, a huge eye-opener, it seems. But I told them, you know what you now call teams, is in my view, my Scrum view, not really teams. But because we've got sort of isolated teams of often specialized teams, just building components of products at most, those are not teams. The problem with old school industrial structures based upon specializations, thinking of people in terms of resources and shifting people around across multiple teams and multiple products and whatever, optimizing or maximizing utilization. The problem is that in a proper Scrum team, you would be focused on a product. That means the product defines who should be working together, not governance. Not governance defining what meetings should be taking place and what information handovers and document handovers and what sign-off should be taking place. So product should be the point of entrance. And a product has consumers, often outside of the organization, users and consumers of the product. Obviously, if you're building internal products, product systems, applications for internal use, then the users, the consumers are actually within the organization, but treat them as if they are not. And then you've got a product owner, you need a product owner for the product, a product owner really owning the product, meaning having a mandate to take decisions over the product, not about the company, but over the product. But then the difficulty with those silo structures is that in a properly formed Scrum team, you would need different types of expertise and skills. I've called it on the IT side, technology, development, whatever you want to call it. You would need testers, programmers, analysts, architects, maybe now in a while a DBA guy, a whatever interface specialist, cloud people might include. So and if your organization is still working in silos, then that is the difficulty. How can you get people? How can you pick people from different silos and bring them together in one dedicated Scrum team, working in the Scrum team full time, not being spread across multiple initiatives or projects, whatever. No, dedicated, having focus, having commitment to that one development. And that seems to be very difficult, how to get people out of those departments to now work full time in a Scrum team. It seems to impact department heads and senior people within department. It seems to impact their sense of importance. They want to be able to control people, which is exactly the industrial attitude that we're fighting against. And to make it even more complex, in a good Scrum team, you would also need sort of business skills within the development team or within the team of developers. You might need a business analyst, a functional analyst, I don't know, a user expert, somebody from product management. All to be facilitated and coached by one, depending on the size, maybe multiple Scrum Masters, depending on how many teams you have. But that for me is a Scrum team. That is a team. A team that has all the skills, expertise, regardless of where those skills come from, united in a team focused on a certain product in order to satisfy the consumers of the product. And that seems to be incredibly difficult to get those people from those silos.
Hey,
But that
Gunther?
is our challenge. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Charlene was asking about contrasting this with program management.
Well, program management, for me, it's all about the product. And imagine you have a number of products within the company, and imagine each product being maintained by a Scrum team or multiple Scrum teams. And imagine all those products being managed by what I just explained as single team Scrum or multi-team Scrum. Then the sort of program level on top of that is product owners aligning their work, aligning their vision, aligning their ideas of their products. So it would be a combination, some sort of alliance, I don't know whether that would be a committee or not, of product owners taking into account desires and abilities of the other products. So in that sense, each of those product owners would have sort of additional criterion to order their individual product backlogs on. That means sometimes requests or dependencies or touch points with other products. That is for me, then ideally, let's say the program level. I'll come back on that structure, by the way, a little bit. So, but still all beautiful, but we haven't talked about it yet. But for me, really essential, don't introduce Scrum because of Scrum or because everybody else is doing it and so on. It's not helpful. In that sense, Scrum cannot be the purpose of Scrum. And that is, remember, my first question when people go through some sort of what they call agile transformation, where is product? And that is important. Now, Scrum, the general definition is, for me, the purpose hidden, at least in my definition of Scrum, and I think this aligns a lot with the definition of Scrum in the Scrum Guide, by the way, is that idea of value. It's all about value. So also yesterday at that company, and I run into that, yeah, we want to do Scrum because of speed and time and quicker and faster and whatever, and hopefully also better quality. And like, no, those are probably important things, but things of a sort of secondary importance. It's about value. Speed, time is very much still rooted in that industrial thinking. For me, it's about value. And let me explain. And value is something very different than volume is, because all those other thinking industrial is about volume, more, faster, whatever. Well, imagine speed, time, quality. You can go a lot faster speed, reduce the time to market enormously, still build higher quality. That is still not an assurance that you're actually delivering value. So value is a very different thing. And as we say, product is the vehicle to deliver value. So very important, again, know your product, because it's via your product, and that might be a good, that might be a service, that might be a physical good, that might be a digital service. It might be very tangible or rather non-tangible, but via your product, you're delivering value, and you're delivering value in the first place have to deliver value in the first place to the consumers of the product. So if you think about reimagining your Scrum and identifying your product, then reboot your Scrum so that you can deliver value via those tasty sashimi slices of product, but deliver value to the consumers, not just to another team, not just to the release department. Reboot your Scrum to deliver value to end users. And that means know your product. Know your product to know what it means to be done with an increment of that product. Know your product also to define for yourself, what does it mean to bring value via this product? What does value mean for us? But allow me to bring some ideas. So consumer is essential for this. So we've already talked about reimagining your Scrum. Next step is, in general, what I currently call, and I say currently because I've been changing my mind already a lot over the past 3-4 years talking about this, but optimize for value, organize, reorganize for value. And it starts by thinking about how to manage for value. And one of the other things that Ken and I did when I was working at Scrum the Talk, working with him, is next to the Nexus framework, we created something that we called Agility Path. Actually, a framework in a way to help people use Scrum, to introduce Scrum. Never took off, nobody believed us and whatever. So funny, but still believe in it. One of the aspects, this aspect of managing for value of Agility Path became evidence-based management, as Scrum.org calls it these days. Let me give my view, but it will be about something with key value indicators. Because when we created this, we wanted to give people an idea, something else than key performance indicators. We called it key value indicators. So let me share that. And it starts with the idea of arming for value. It's a bit of an acronym. How to arm for value. How to almost weaponize ourselves or arm ourselves for value. And as you can see, arm, 3 letters. A, assume value or anticipate value. On your product backlog. In that sense, I want your product owners to organize their product backlogs for value. What is the most important things? What is going to bring the most value? If you think about value, you know your product. What is the most important work on the product backlog that we currently depending on what the life cycle of the product probably, but what is currently going to bring the most value. So assume you're going to be able to deliver value, or anticipate, which is a bit more active, but I like to make it an assumption, and I'll tell you why. Because organizing your product backlog for value is not enough. You need to actually release, because you have to create output. That is the increment or the increments that you are creating. You have to actually release them, because it's an assumption of value, not just until you actually release, but also until you close the feedback loop with your consumers and you try to validate your assumption of value. I assumed with this work, these increments, that we were going to deliver value. That might be happy customers or more satisfied customers. That might have been market share. But you don't really know until you close that feedback loop of value. So work around value. Organize your product backlog for value. Assume value via product backlog items. Release them as increments to the market, but that is still output. That is still sort of limited to that industrial view, because output in a way can be seen as volume. And certainly, like what the question referred to, the reporting on velocity, that is reporting on volume. It says nothing about value. It's just how much work did we get done? Sort of speed and time. How much work did we get done? It says nothing about the impact that we might have, that we should have, that we want to have, that we hope we would have. To really measure in Scrum, you need to measure the outcome of your output, meaning the impact that your outcome has with consumers, for the organization, and even for the teams that you're working with. So, and that's the first step. So arm yourself for value, start managing for value. Know your product, think about what is value, what would it mean for this product to deliver, to generate value, and then arm yourself for that. That means you're actually creating a feedback loop on top of your Scrum feedback loops. We all know Scrum, dual feedback loop. Sprint itself is a feedback loop. And on top of that, we've got this little feedback loop that we call a daily Scrum. Now, ideally, your value feedback loop would be coinciding, would be the same as your sprint feedback loop. It's probably might be difficult. So, but think at least virtually about adding a feedback loop on top of Scrum around value. So you've assumed value on product backlog, you release your increments, and then you measure by capturing what I call key value indicators. Indicators that give you an idea, are we or are we not delivering value? In that sense, indicators to help you validate the assumption of value, which might mean that you're capturing feedback that invalidates your assumption of value. I assumed we were going to increase value, but it's not happening. That is not good, that is not bad, that's why it's an indicator. It will help you go to the next step. But warning, like with velocity, measurements are not targets. So even if you're capturing velocity, even that should not be a target. Velocity cannot be a target. KPIs should not be a target. A lot of companies nowadays go for OKRs, objective key results, objectives and key results, whatever, copy paste it from Google, but they turn it into old school targets again. It's something, and when you turn things into targets, people start lying, they start cheating, they start gaming the metrics again. They might be starting killing other people for it, as long as they achieve their targets. So try to stay away from that. And in a complex world, probably value is not expressed as one indicator, but potentially multiple indicators. And to make it even more complex, probably not just one point of measurement will help you. In a complex changing world, you want to look out for trends and trend lines and evolutions of things. Just a lot of warnings before we go into this. So this is still based on the work that Ken and I did. I believe so strongly in it. So we've got key value indicators, and I'll give a number of them. I'll show you some examples, but look at them as examples, almost samples, things that you might want to use, but you want to customize this to your context, to your product, your consumer base, your stakeholders, and so on, your organization. And they're organized in key value areas. Yeah, and I still distinguish 3 key value areas. And let me start with the second one, because I still stuck with me from that company yesterday in France. It was, by the way, a large multinational company also with headquarters in France. That their ambition of Agile is not just limited to, but it was focused a lot on speed, time, quality. Now, speed, time, quality are a lot for me in what I call the key value area of adaptability. If you have speed, if you're quicker, it's easier to respond and so on. That's about how adaptable are you. But you can be incredibly adaptable and still not deliver value, or not know whether you are or are not delivering value. Because adaptability is expressed in things like release cadence, in measurements, indicators that say, how much time do we still need to get something into production once it has been sort of released as an increment by a Scrum team? Because often it has to go to QA cycles, all the release departments and so on. It's what I call undone time. If you're working in sprints of 2 weeks, and then it takes the bloody release department 3 months to get it out there, then your sort of cycle time is not 2 weeks, it's bloody 3 months and a half. So people fool themselves into, illusion of agility. So value for me.
Real quick, I just want to give you a 5-minute warning because
I know
it's the end of the half hour.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock too. I'm imagining. Okay, thanks, Mark. So think about value for consumers, often in terms of something with satisfaction, measured in some way, for the product, not for the organization. As a product owner, you want to know what your users, what your consumers think about your product, not about the company in general. Yeah, so that is important. Think about often value for the organization via the stakeholders, which is often something with money. I think most of us work in commercial organizations, so it's something with financial benefits or profits or market share or maybe even cost reductions, who know, lower total cost of ownerships and who knows. But also think about value for the people doing the work. So value for the consumers of the work, stakeholders, the organization, value for the consumers of the work, users, consumers, buyers, but also value for the creators of the work, the teams. It is not useful to have a really high satisfied customer base with a lot of financial returns, where we keep burning out people, where people end up in depression, long-term absenteeism, at home all the time, sickness, illness, we burn out people, overtime, weekend work and so on. Makes no sense. You want to balance those things out. Happy consumers, happy stakeholders, but also happy teams. Yeah? So, and that is for me value. The other things support value, certainly the adaptability things. And ultimately, you want to introduce Scrum to free up time and energy to think about new things again. Not just tweak existing things, add, tweak features and whatever to existing things. You want to build new capabilities within existing products. And you even want to think about actually devising, creating, conceiving new products, innovative products. And that's the innovation part. But that is also part of value. You want to sort of register somewhere, are we actually being able to do that? Are we using Scrum? Are we introducing Scrum in such a way that people can think again, think about other stuff again? Are we allowing new initiatives to pop up and emerge? So those are key value indicators. Now, what I find missing in evidence-based management, it's only the metrics, the measurement part. In agility path, that was just the start. That measuring, arming, was just metrics, indicators. That was sort of what we call in Scrum inspection. You want to use those inspections to think about adaptations. If you're not having the value that you were hoping for, how can we try to go for a better delivery of value? Is it in the skills of the people? Is it in the team composition? Is it in people being all over the place all the time? Is it in intruding in teams composition too much? Is it about knowledge people? Don't they have the right skills? Do they have the right practices in place? How do they do development? Have they access to the right tools, the right systems? Do they have authorizations to those systems? What sort of standards do they have to comply with, and so on? So think about adaptation. That is the most important part. Inspection without adaptation is futile, it's pointless. Just reporting out on velocity without the ambition, the intention to do something with it and look for, okay, how can we even improve or get a better or whatever velocity, and it's pointless, just and it's reporting for reporting's sake, not helpful. So turn your arming for value, turn it into an armada of value by adapting it to it. Arm for it and then adapt to the insights that you get from it in order to optimize for value. Skills, tools of people, skill sets, authorizations, systems, and so on. Very traditional, let's say, impediments to Scrum in an organization. But ultimately, you want to adapt the organization for success, not just the Scrum teams or help. You don't want to facilitate change within the Scrum teams. You want to facilitate change throughout the organization. In that sense, organize for value. Mark, can I have 2 more minutes?
For you, sure, Gunther.
Oh, thank you. Again, I can close a little bit of the loop, because Reversify means reimagine your Scrum. Reimagine your Scrum iteratively, incrementally across all of the initiatives you got running. Optimize them for value by managing for value, and ultimately adapt the organization. And this is something, the strangest thing is, back in 2012, 11 years ago, Ken and I drove forward the first organization of a big event called Scrum Day Europe, still happening in Amsterdam every year. And at that first Scrum Day event, Scrum Day Europe event in Amsterdam, July 2012, I already talked about this. Not managing for value, but these things that are now called product hubs. My pictures were a lot worse. It was full of silly colors and so on. I was a lot younger. You have to forgive me for that. I've grown up in the meantime. I've learned that you have to take care of things and that you have to make it more beautiful. But I already talked about this. So we talked about the first topic, product. Know your product. It will define what you mean with done. It will define value so that you can manage for value. But remember the second thing, how to reorganize around Scrum. And the crazy thing is that already in the paper 1986, where we got the name Scrum from, they already at least hinted at it. This is a quote from the new product development game. Organizations need to adapt a management style that promotes this process, what they were describing, and they even made it a little bit more clear. I come back on that. Let me quickly go over this. This is about accountabilities within the organization. Remember, what is a team in Scrum? This is a team in Scrum. Now, in an organization, you've got stakeholders in place. You might have subject matter experts in place, specialists that are really highly specialized in specific things that you sometimes need, not all the time, whatever might happen. Get those people, form a sort of unity around those people, and that is what I call a product hub. And it's based upon, I think by the end of 2015, we were in Seattle with a bunch of Scrum to Talk people at an event. And I don't know, somewhere in the evening, taking a walk. I think they have a river somewhere in Seattle. I think we were walking, in my memory, we were walking by a river. And then some trainers asked me, Gunther, how do you see the future of Agile? Rather difficult question, but then it struck me that the future of Agile is in the small. And let me explain. This is what I mean with it. You need to set up a product hub, a hub around a product. For a product, you've got lots of things that need to happen. Sales activities, marketing, delivery, commercial strategy, financial things, maybe compliance things, legal things, and so on. At the heart of your product, you have a product owner, and often for the delivery of a product, you're using Scrum. Now, in all those other departments, you might have subject matter experts and stakeholders, but you still want to sort of bring them all together in a way. That is a product hub. I'm not saying that all those other activities should run on Scrum too. But if marketing is happening for the product, then the marketing people should be part of the ecosystem around the product. Now, I was recently working with a large Dutch bank, and I'll share how they've gone a step further. Trying to take it a step further, which I totally love, by the way. But this is what the new product development game already said. I've just replaced a team or whatever they call it. I call it a product hub. Operates like a startup. They set their own agenda, they take their own initiatives, they manage their own product backlog, they release their increments and so on. And management within the organization should act as an investor, not intervening on a daily basis, not intervening in the execution of the work, but providing guidance, providing money, giving feedback, whatever, anything that helps, but not intervening in how the work is being done. That is a minimal requirement. So actually the new product development game already said what the role of management should be in this. And what a Dutch company is doing, a big bank, is that it says, I hope they get there, is not just have a product hub where the creation, the delivery of the product is done with Scrum, but in the end, they wanna include all of the work in a stable, dedicated structure, which I would call a product hub. I think they're going to call it differently, but I don't care about terms too much anyhow, where they're going to try to involve all those people working in sprints. They will probably have concurrent marketing sprints as marketing is working for the same product and so on. And that means I hope that if they continue like this, that gradually, iteratively, incrementally, they will transform their organization from a rigid pyramid structure into an agile, flexible structure where it's a combination, a network of product hubs that are aligned around purpose, vision at the company level, but not necessarily on hierarchy. And this is why I said the future of Agile will be in the small, because even big enterprises should think about making things small again. Not by fighting people, but by moving towards value centers, product hubs, whatever you want to call it. This is that final quote of my book. So I talked about it 2012, which is even worse, Jamie, than what we talked about it. So I've been talking about this for a few years. I've been actually talking about this for 11 years and longer. Sorry for going over time. A bit of my, I can always say, time boxes, well, that's for wussies, not for me. Which is not true, by the way. But
well, Gunther, this has been awesome. So while you were talking, I don't know if you were paying attention to the chat, but there was a flurry of discussion based on what you were talking about going on. So people were very highly engaged in your talk, and I'm glad I made time to come today because it was well worth the time.
okay, cool. Thank you, Mark, and thank you for everybody for being here. Still have quite a crowd indeed, about 60 people. So that's hopefully a good sign. But this is what I mean, moving your Scrum forward. If we all start moving our little Scrum implementation forward, together we will collectively, bottom up, start moving Scrum as a movement, a global movement forward. And that is what we think we should do. We have to keep thinking about next step, where now. Be happy with what we've achieved, but go forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gunther. Thanks for everybody who stuck around. It's been a treat. We'll see y'all next time.